Maybe you have trouble getting the network command ping to work on your Windows 10 PC. Then this video could be for you. In this video here, I will try to explain a little bit about the network command ping and how we may experience that it does not always do what we like it to do. We use ping a lot in network technology, so therefore it's a very good idea to know a bit about troubleshooting related to the command and how to use it. So let's get on with it and take a look at what ping is. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, submarines, they were very mysterious to me. Maybe because I grew up during the Cold War and hearing about new submarine sightings in Swedish waters were very exciting. But you may have heard about their sonar system. If they want to know the distance to an object, they will range it using a sonar ping, sending out a sonar ping, and then from the object there will come an echo reply and it will return, and then you can calculate the range, the distance to the object. In network technology we use a command called ping, not to range the object to see the distance, but we use it to see if the host we would like to communicate with is alive or available to us. We also use the ping command to get an idea about latency in the network. Maybe something is not working correctly. If we take a closer look at the response time, we can see that response time is critical for different services. In this listing here, web browsing is not affected too much, but online gaming is mentioned here as a service that could get affected. If we try, if we think of the period here with the worldwide corona lockdown, online collaboration, meetings, and of course also online gaming was highly affected because of network delays. And speaking about online gaming, not that I know too much about it, but I've found some game servers for the game Counter-Strike CSGO, one in Denmark, as you can see on top, and one in the United States in the bottom. It could be fun to see what the response times for these two servers are. So let's try and ping them. And as we can see, without any surprise, the server located in Denmark is the one with the lowest response time. The round trip time in milliseconds is 17. As you can see in the bottom of the screen here, its average is 17 milliseconds. The server located in the United States, on the other hand, have a much higher response time of more than 100 milliseconds. And if you remember the previous slides, according to the listing on tech terms, it will create noticeable lag in online gaming. You could argue that the server in Denmark is not busy. There are no players, and the server in the US is fully packed with players. So how can we check if the situation changes over time, for instance? Yes, we could use network monitoring. I could perform a laboratory test and keep my eye on the situation. I could execute a ping command every minute or so and write down the response time in my little notebook. But my guess is that after a couple of hours you will look a bit like this. I know that I would, and along the way I will also have made a couple of mistakes. Therefore, we could automate the process. We could use a little software robot to do the job for us, to do all the work for us. That's a good idea. because then we can do other stuff like playing games, reading books, or doing homework. But how do we automate this process? Here is a little idea. We could use a batch script, a Windows batch scripts. I will not go too much into details with these batch script file here. You'll learn a lot more about scripting if you choose the network line later on in this education. But I will point out a couple of lines so that you can get a feeling of what is going to be happening. And you can read more about Windows commands in the URL that I put on the bottom of the screen here. So let's take a walkthrough of the little script file. In line 2, I set a variable named IP address and I give it the value of the server that we want to test. In line 3, I set a new variable with the time interval in seconds. In this test script I use 10 seconds so that we don't need to wait too long to see the output. But if you reproduce this on your own, maybe you could use every minute or every 5 minutes, I think would be okay. Then in line 4 I define a block of code. This means that when I use the last line, if you look at the last line, go to ping interval, this block of code will run forever while true loop. I don't know if you have learned that in Python yet, but you'll most definitely come to it. In line 5, this is the start of the code block that I defined. I simply want a text with some asterisks and the word start, and then I would like to append it, write it to a file called filename.txt. You can see the two greater n sign is redirecting the output from the previous command using echo to write some text, and it will redirect it to a file called filename.txt. It do not exist before running the script, so the script will make a file called filename.txt and it will write the first line to it. Then in line 6, it's the same as line 5. It appends, it redirects and appends a line of text to the file, but this time I'm using a variable date, so I get the current date. And in line 7 I append the current time to keep a track of when I issue the ping command. And then all the fun happens in line 8. This is where I execute the ping command with the target name equals to the variable that we set in line 2 named IP address. In this case it's the target for the server located in the US. But we also use the option -n1. It means that I will send one ping only. The output from the command is then again appended to the filename.txt. And then in line 9 I append a line with asterisks and the word end to signal that I ended this block of code. And then in line 10 I start the timeout. It's a countdown that uses the variable that we defined in line 3, and in this case here it counts down from 10 seconds. And then the last line, line 11, as mentioned before, it ends the block of code and returns back to line 4. But as I mentioned, if you want to know more about Windows commands, take a look at the URL here at the bottom of the screen. But I think we should try and see this in action here. So here you can see my command prompt on PC2, and let's try and see if we can have if we have the file name called filename.txt. So I will just go over here to my command prompt, simulating my PC2, and let's see if I have a file called filename.txt. No, it is not existing. Let's see if I have my ping script, ping test 10 second.bat. It's here. So we can try and see what's in this script here. Ping test. So as you can see here, it's pretty much it's the same, equal to the one that we just went over in the slides. So if I try to execute this this ping script here, let's try and see what happens. Now it already executed the first ping command to the server located in the US, and now it will wait 10 seconds, and then it initiated a new ping and will wait a further 10 seconds before issuing a new ping command, and it will go on until I decide how to terminate it. So I think that is enough for this little here, so I would like to terminate the batch script. Let's see if we have this time we have a file called filename.txt. So let's try and see what's in it. Filename.txt. So here you see my little lab journal, our recordings of the ping command sent every 10 seconds to the Counter-Strike server in the US. I can see that the first one was initiated on this date here, and this time here. It sent a ping to this server here, and here is the response time, 111 milliseconds. And then the block of code ends, and then it starts again, and then I can see it's approximately 10 seconds later. It's doing a new ping, and 10 seconds later another ping request. So I have complete track of my data, and I know to track and see the response time of the server. And then if I run it a whole day, I can see if there is any changes during the day. But this was a bit of a sidetrack, so let's just clean this one here, and let's go back to our presentation. What was interesting also is that sometimes you will get this request timeout. So we will experience that even though we have two computers in the same network, and we know they have connectivity, and we know they are operational and so on, they can't ping each other. So in this case here, I made a little network topology, a little test set up. I have two PCs, PC1 and PC2. They are both connected to a switch. In this case here, the switch is manned. It is administrative, so I can so it has its own IP address, 192.168.1.3. The network, I have a net ID of 192.168.1.0 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0 or /24 if you want. PC1 on the left is located with a host address of 0.183, and the PC2 will have a host address of 0.172. So the obstacle that we sometimes meet is that on Windows 10 PCs, Windows PCs, we have this firewall enabled, and ICMP pings is not allowed to enter this firewall. So whenever one PC is trying to ping a Windows PC, the ping will hit the firewall and will not be allowed to enter to the PC, and thereby will not be able to send a reply back. And as you saw, it can give a request timeout. So we need to find a way to penetrate this firewall without jeopardizing our security and turning it completely off. Of course, you can just turn off the firewall, but you could also make a new rule so that it is possible for you to enter with an ICMP ping. So let's try and see how we will accomplish that. So my little setup here, I have a PC1 on the left, as you can see, a Windows PC, and PC2 that we just used in the script before is a command prompt that we have. And then in between we have the switch located at 192.168.1.3. So let's try and see if the PCs are the correct one. So if I do a ipconfig here, let's see if I can find my Ethernet adapter here. I can see that my IP address is 192.168.1.172, which is the one that I want for PC2. And let's go over to PC1 and find the command prompt here and do the same, ipconfig. I can see that it's located on 192.168.1.183. So this is my two PCs. So I would like to try and see if I can ping my switch from PC1, and I can see that I get a reply from my switch, and I will go over and do the same here on PC2 198.168.1.3, and I will also get a reply from the switch here. So everything is good, and I can even also ping outside here. I can ping Google's nameserver. So everything is good. But let me try and ping from PC2. Let's try and see if we can ping PC1 183. So when I try to ping PC1 from PC2, I get this request timeout. So let's try and go over to PC1. Maybe it's easier to see if we do like this, and we do a Windows Defender. So I can see my Windows firewall is enabled on all platforms: domain profile, private profile, and public profile. It's on. So let's try and go back to PC2 here. And as you saw before, we have some options in the ping. In the script example, we used -N1 to send one ping. I could of course send 100 or 1000 pings, but I could also use -T to ping the host until I stop it. So let's try and ping. We'll try and ping PC1 again, and this time I will ping it until I stop it. So it will keep pinging in order to get a reply, and as it looks, it's still timing out. So let's go back to PC1 and see what we can do about that. I can go and make a new inbound rule. So up here I will put in a new rule, use a custom one for this ICMP rule here. I choose all programs here. Then I come to protocol type. I can find my ICMP version 4 here. I can go in and customize it in further down if I want that, but I will leave it with all ICMP types for now. I can choose if it should be allowed from specific IP addresses or any IP address, and in this case here I will let it be with the default of any IP address. And here I have the option of allowing the connection or blocking the connection, but in this case I want to allow the connection, and I want to use it. I could choose whether or not I want it on the public or the private, but it is of course up to you if you want to allow it for all profiles. So I click next here and call it ICMP version 4 test, and let's just go over and see what happens on PC2. It still sends request times out. So let's see what happens when I click finish here on PC1, and hopefully PC2 will now be allowed to ping and get a reply from PC1, and it looks like it is working. So if we go over to PC1 here, I can see I have a new rule up here, ICMP version 4 test, and I can of course disable this rule here, which will give me a request timeout on PC2 trying to ping PC1. So now it times out once again, and let me just enable the rule so that I can see that I get my connectivity back, or my the possibility of pinging from PC1 to PC2. So for me, now I just need to go over to PC2 and try and see if I can set up the same firewall rule on PC2 so that I can ping from PC1 to PC2. This is the end of this little video here. So hopefully you will try some of the ping commands yourself and set up your firewall so that it is possible for you in classes or wherever you go to get a ping and test your connectivity on various devices. So hopefully this was useful.